A motion to either add and or adopt the proposed agenda, please.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
For a second? It has been moved by Angela Allen and seconded by Michelle Maxwell that we adopt the proposed agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay, we have a accepted agenda. Right. Dr. Armstrong, you want
Yes,
to
ma'am.
talk about the budget calendar?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, board members, good evening. We have lots of calendar activity across several dimensions of the calendar. The one that is before you for approval this evening is the amended calendar year 2026 board meeting calendar. Due to the recent changes we've had due to weather, I will point out the highlighted and strike throughs here, which really is only applying to January and February. We moved the January 27th workshop to today, and we moved what was going to be a presentation of the budget today to coincide with next week's regular business meeting. We have then established the public hearing date on its own on Tuesday, February 17th, which will give ample time for the public to digest the budget before giving us comment, and then time before your approval, your consideration for approval, February 24th. So those are the changes in the calendar for the school board.
And the school calendar?
Apologies. Yes, we will be, as our community heard in our announcement yesterday, we are going to shift the February 16th and March 20th professional development days, which were student holidays, to regular instructional days. We do not feel the need to move any further with any adjustments at this point. If we were to get any weather, then we'll reconsider some other options, but that will be in front of the board for your approval next week.
All right. Now, as far as the school board calendar is concerned, is there a motion to accept the revised school board calendar?
I move to accept the revised board calendar.
Okay. It's been moved by Ms. Robinson and seconded by Ms. Worsing to approve the revised school board calendar. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Okay, good. And we will vote on the other thing next week after,
Right.
during the regular meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. And now it's on to the budget workshop,
Okay.
budget presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I do want to again publicly thank Stephanie Weish and her team. This has been, I will say, in my work so far as a superintendent, I don't know if I'm going to count the budget as the top thing that I enjoy most about the job yet. It has been, thank God I have Stephanie there beside me to help me to manage this as we go through it. I know that, one of our core values is optimism, and I remain optimistic about where we will end up with this budget. But another one of our core values is honor, and I want to be honest about where we are. So I don't want to bury the lead as we go into this tonight. And we've been approaching this from a needs basis from day one. And we will continue to do that tonight in this workshop. We're going to articulate what we feel the needs are for our school division. We're going to prioritize those. But I want to, in the back of our minds tonight, think about level setting what it is when we talk about needs. I think there are some who think need is what I need to wake up in the morning: air, water, food, your basic necessities. I like to frame need as relating to what we need to drive, maintain, or enable our strategic goals to create an amazing experience for our kids and our teachers. So, and I realize that there may be some gray area between how people characterize needs across this board and across the board of supervisors. And I think we work together and we collaborate to find that common ground. So as I go through this tonight, I will continue to articulate what we feel are the needs. I do want to be clear, though, when we talk about the honesty part and the honor, is that we currently don't have a local transfer number, which means that when I come to you all next week and I present the budget, that by law has to be a balanced budget. So theoretically, as we sit here tonight, we're balancing our budget off of a flat funding and whatever state aid we anticipate receiving, which I will just tell you up front will not come anywhere near close to covering all the needs we've identified so far. I continue to stay in touch with Dr. Rayleigh. I know that he's doing work on his end, and we'll continue to stay in touch. But I did want to make sure I led with that and to let you all know where we were. So next week, Steph and I talk about this pending our conversations tonight. When we walk out of here this evening, we'll present a balanced budget, balanced either to a local transfer number if we get it between now and then, or balanced to a flat funding amount. And I think we'll present that, but I don't see any reason why we still can't also say, and yes, this is your balanced budget, but in the event that funds were to materialize, these would be the needs that we would prioritize. So this is a very dynamic process. I know it's one that involves a lot of different parties at the table. So I just wanted to frame everything for you before we dig in tonight. Any questions on any of that? Okay, let's get into it. You're going to notice tonight's presentation is a lot more nuts and bolts, lots of numbers, lots of tables, because we've got to work to create the balanced budget, create a budget book, and move this forward in the weeks ahead. So we've taken the needs and we've divided them up by our strategic goals. This is one of the pieces around, how we define needs. And the first one, of course, is maximize the student potential for successful life. And these are needs here that you'll see, and we've discussed all of these at some point. You've seen them in workshops before. There's nothing new on this list. I do want to note, and this comes from a conversation I've had, the dual enrollment tuition for J. Sargent Reynolds. I think there may be, that's one of our calling cards, right? Our students get associate's degrees. We know the benefit to that. If there was ever a question in the community about us kind of subsidizing college tuition, we're really not doing that. I know that question's come up. You see that designated there in the budget for 110,875, but students do pay tuition here. Now they pay a fraction of what it would cost. But we then, as you may remember, last month we approved the budget supplement, which actually assigned that as revenue for us for the tuition. So it kind of balances out. And Stephanie, there's more detail. Please speak over me because you know it better than I do. So I do want to just put an asterisk on that, but we do have the budget for it on this end of our work. Did I explain that fairly well? Okay, good. Just trying to think if I didn't. I do want to note that we have a new item here, and this also came up after a conversation I had with another member of the community, this individual who's been involved with the budget approval process for years, made the observation that it seems that we always seem to go back after our enrollment dust has settled later in the process. And the question was, is there a way that we can maybe do a better job of articulating what it is we need when it comes to enrollment earlier? Now, obviously, we don't have kindergarten enrollment until April. We don't know kindergarten enrollment. But we do know that we can look at our enrollment trends, and we do this work with our principals. And I want to unpack that for you all tonight. So, because, and where it gets complicated, I think the best way to do it is to honestly just get right to my little spreadsheet that Dr. Geyer and I worked on today. I'm going to make this bigger, a lot bigger. And you have it in front of you too, I believe, as a separate sheet. So, and I'm going to do my best to explain this without causing confusion with it. Oh, sorry, do you not have the sheet? Here you go. So these are your three elementary schools in these three columns. You've got Bird, GES, and Randolph there in green. And if you look down the columns, you've got grade levels, K through 5 as you go down. And then you see that term, it says target 15 to 19. When I talked to Dr. Geyer, one thing that we value in this division is our small class sizes. I think it's a recruitment tool. I think it's a retention tool. I think it makes for a better experience for our students and our teachers, and it leads to better outcomes. And I asked Steve, I said, what do we typically look at when we talk about keeping our class sizes small? Let's kind of create some science behind that. And we aim for between 15 to 19 students in our K through 1 classes, 16 to 20 in grades 2 and 3, and then 17 to 21 in 4 and 5. That's really your sweet spot. So this table here, if you look at it in column B, I have made the teacher names anonymous to protect the innocent. But this is the actual table that we use when we look at enrollment projections. We have our principals look at this because, there's been a lot of fluctuation even since we started school back in August. We've had students come in, we've had students leave. This gives us a more current real-time number around enrollment. So when you move over to the next column, you see current. That is the number of students we have in that grade level as of last week at that school, by teacher, by section. So that's the number of kids in each class. So there at Byrd, you have 3 kindergarten classes, 17 students in one, 14 students in the other, 17 in another one. It's the same thing across. So does that make sense how we've got this laid out? We do this all the time, but I want to make sure, if you haven't seen this, it's making sense. So if you look in the next column, it says 26, 27, and that is the projected enrollment. Now, for kindergarten, it's a little bit different. For the grades down, if you take that current number, like in first grade, it's a 38 for Byrd, then that should be just transposed down to second grade for the projection. Now, we know it doesn't always work out exactly like that, but for the purpose of projections, that's what we're looking at. But if you look at that kindergarten number that's highlighted there in orange, and I give Dr. Geyer credit for this, what that is actually the average of the other 5 cohorts in that school. So we don't always have sometimes the kindergarten enrollment's going to come in higher because of birth rates and, cataclysm in the world, and these things happen. But in this situation here, Steve had a really good idea. Just said, what is our average when you take, our first grade, second grade, third, fourth, and fifth numbers? So when you look at that, then we would be thinking, we'll probably see about 40. That's why I got the decimal there. We'd probably see about 47 kids at Byrd in kindergarten, maybe 81 at Gooch Elementary School, possibly about the same at Randolph. So that's the kindergarten number. So when we take all of these columns and these rows and we start to put things together, what I want to show you is, even though the overall numbers of students in the division K through 5 might not be radically different, some folks in public might say, well, why do you need another teacher at the elementary level? Because you don't have that many more kids. But it comes down to what we value when it comes to class sizes. So a good example, let's take a look here at Goochland Elementary School. In kindergarten, if we're anticipating having over 80 students, which is very possible, then we would want to keep our class sizes in that 15 to 19 range. You would need 5 sections to do that, as opposed to having 4 sections this year. If you divided the 81.4 by 5, then you're going to have over 20 students. No, not quite that, but anyway, fuzzy math, but it's going to be over our threshold and our target numbers for those students. So we're going to need to add it. Let's say we needed to add a position at GES, and our principals, if they're watching this, probably throw darts at me because they usually do this work like, hey, why you get ahead of us? And I'm not going to speak for them. They may want to say, well, actually, I want to move this person from this grade over here. So please, this is all for illustration only. But then you go down to first grade at GES and you look there, and currently we have 5 sections for 94 students. We got 72 kids going in. So we can lose a section there and still keep our numbers reasonable at 18 per section. When you go down to second grade, we currently have 75 students there. Then those 94 kids who are in first grade next year are going to be going to second grade. We've got to add one there. So we can move that first grade teacher to second grade. Is this kind of making sense how we move things? But I highlighted that in pink because look how close that gets to really our threshold on what we consider to be a really reasonable class size. And I think we've really got to key in on that. All of those red highlights you see of it, Byrd in the second grade, GES in third, fourth, and fifth. Then you look at some of those kindergarten numbers too, which comes down when you add that new position. I did want to highlight that too, and just tell you, and for you all, but also for the folks who I think sometimes scrutinize our enrollment numbers, we're not just sitting there kind of pulling numbers out of our hat. We're doing this in a fairly scientific method. So when you take all that and you look at Randolph, you look at GES, and you look at Byrd, then you go back to my presentation. That's why you see here, we would like to get ahead of this and expresses a need to have 2 additional elementary school teachers. I think that would satisfy, first of all, the need for that new position in second grade at Randolph, which would keep our class sizes where they need to be, as well as an additional kindergarten teacher at GES. And like I said, our principals will shuffle teachers based on their strengths if need be. for any internal moves, but we do feel that we would justify that as a need based on these enrollment patterns. I'm going to stop there for a minute. I know it's a lot to digest, but I just want to make sure that makes sense, because I know that is something new. And then usually we would say, okay, we go back to the supervisors in May, and they're like, well, why are you coming back now? Didn't you know this? And, yeah, we kind of did, but we always waited for kindergarten enrollment. I would really think it would be better for everybody involved if we were just able to get ahead of it. So we had our self-contained special needs students in the spreadsheet that we use, Ms. Robinson. That is in there as well. We haven't separated those out in these enrollment numbers, but that might be a good next step, because we do know that we need to think about our collaborative teachers, our IAs who are working in those classrooms. So this doesn't get quite that level of detail, but we do account for that too. Typically, yeah.
I'm looking at third, second grade. If we told a teacher they're going projected to go down to 38 from 51, so they could possibly lose a teacher, but that the font sizes for them are climbing up there, and they're
It does.
more just in that grade level.
And you and Ms. Robinson both, you've worked with early learners, and Steve and I always talk about how especially important it is in those early literacy years to keep our class sizes small.
The second grade's about when they really touch on.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
they're doing that reading.
Right.
So I do, I'm trying to think that those numbers are high, really.
Okay. So I hope that's helpful. I don't know if this has ever been unpacked for the board before. This is something that we had tabs going back to 2015 on the spreadsheet, and we just have usually done this internally, but I thought it was a really good exercise for you all just to see how we work through this, because I know there have been questions before that we're going through the budget approval process about enrollment. In addition to this, Jen is working to commission the yield and enrollment projection study too, through the third party that we've been using. They're going to do an update to that, and that'll give us some data for the yields around housing developments, which is going to be really important data for us to have, as well as some of the trends with enrollment in the area. Another question that came up too that I always like to mention is the private homeschool enrollment we have in this county. And I have looked, but I can't find a kind of a official source of information around that, other than me going to like the census data, taking the number of school-age children in Goochland, and then subtracting what our enrollment is. And when you do that, I think it's safe to say that we have well over 500 students in this county. You think about that. We enroll 2,600. There are at least 500 kids, if not significantly more, who are either in private schools or in homeschools.
Don't forget that some of the private schools are officially in Louisa.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the Gucci kids, I mean, it's right over the county line, but they're officially in Louisa.
Right. Yeah. So that's why it's so important to get this enrollment data. I think it's a very complex calculus in Goochland. It always has been. And with the development that we're seeing and that's gotten a lot of attention, I want to make sure we're staying ahead of that.
Graders, they don't really take classes, but are they departmentalized?
I think second might stay in one place all day.
Yeah, it is a principal decision and a grade level decision by school. As you know, every once in a while, there's a teacher that might just be an amazing math teacher, and they want all the kids to have that teacher for math, so they might compartmentalize by grade level. But I don't believe in second grade at any of our three schools they're departmentalized this year.
I know we have third grade, for example. I know Miss Lawson at Randolph
Yes.
is teaching math exclusively, which has been working out really well for them. But great teacher.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions about the enrollment? Sorry, I know it was a lot of detail to give on that one thing, but it's an important one, and I wanted to put it out there. Okay, getting back to it. Otherwise, the other needs here, we've talked about the additional elementary SPED teacher. And we've had some conversation about that. I think improving outcomes for our special education students, yes, it is a big responsibility of our special education teacher and the case manager, but it's also as much a responsibility of the tier 1 instruction they receive from their their teacher, their general ed teacher, which is another reason why keeping this class size as small is going to be really important. So we've maintained that. Middle school math remains part-time academic interventionists using that designated funding. Our CTE teachers, and we still have that budgeted for 2. We included the nurse aide situation where we're trying to expand that as well. I think there was a conversation as recently as this afternoon working through that, so we'll have a report for you on that in the near future. And of course, monitoring course selection. Elementary Encore remains. I do think when we talk about what's needed to meet strategic goals and to give a great experience to students, I do believe that having a full-time Encore teacher in every elementary school, I would consider a need. Some may disagree, but I think this board, we're on the same page about that. Now, if we're in a situation where we have to make some decisions, will I prioritize that over the keeping our class sizes small in elementary schools? Probably not, but hopefully we won't have to make that choice. So I'm going to maintain my optimism in the meantime. Would love to make the high school band teacher position full-time. We have a small stipends that we need to administer. And then another piece here is that GES Dean of Students. Right now, we pay a summer school administrator to run summer school. What we'd like to do is make that part of the GES Dean's responsibilities, and then take the savings we would get out of summer schools and put it toward compensating that dean for a few extra contract days during the summer. It just makes pretty good common sense. So those are the additional staffing needs, which is going to total nearly $850,000 right now. So questions about any of those?
I have a question about the robotics. Did this increase our robotics program at all?
So
I think that was brought up.
in terms of the robotics teams, Mr. Watson, you want to talk a little bit about kind of how that's evolved in the last couple of years? I know we've established it at the middle school has grown.
Right. The middle school now has 2 robotics teams. DES is going to, DES has 2 teams. GES is going to 2 teams next year. Randolph had 1 this year. It won't surprise me if they want to go to 2 next year.
Yeah, I think, but that's included in the 12,000 for the additional stipends.
Yeah.
So, if this is incorporating a slightly higher stipend for the middle school because they've gone to more of a competitive program, similar to the high school, and also an assistant at the assistant robotics coach at the high school who has kind of been volunteering for a very long time, and this is to establish a set stipend for that.
No, my question is, why is it only 12,000?
Well, this is
When you got,
including girls wrestling stipend, esports.
It's
Girls
aligned.
on the Run.
It's aligned with our other middle school and high school stipends. Yeah, it's not.
oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay,
it's not a.
Yeah, they're a
I was thinking
percentage.
this was like really low.
No, they're
Okay.
a percentage.
Some may
of
agree with you.
This is an increase of what is presently in the budget for our robotics coaches.
Okay.
They haven't had it yet.
But they do. If you,
Just as long as increasing does get them a reasonable stipend.
I will, and I will say this, if you were to calculate out by the hour, how much our coaches and our sponsors make on that stipend, they're probably working for pennies.
They do
So,
a little more.
yes, well, yeah. So just something to keep in the back of your mind.
I have a different question on the math for the CTE teachers. Are these 4 full-time positions?
So these are 2 full-time positions.
Okay.
And I know that's a lot for 2 full-time positions.
No, the math makes sense. That's fine.
Yes, it has 2 full-time.
Okay.
We just need to see enrollment numbers and,
Yep.
and interest.
But there are also 11-month contracts for those two.
Yes, sorry.
I don't have a problem with the 200,000. I wanted to make sure it wasn't too low.
We're thinking there could be some attrition with some of the other programs
Sure.
as well, so some shifting around, but it
Just
places.
saw 4 positions and look back up the line where we've got 2 elementary teachers and 4 times.
Yep.
Right.
2. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Goal 2, our engaging responsive experience for students and staff. I'm going to talk more about, the health insurance premium increase. We did get some fairly good news, looking at our last quarter data that we don't have a final number yet, but we were thinking that our health insurance premiums could potentially go well past the 10%, 12% we've been thinking about. I will tell you that the weight loss drugs that are now being covered by insurance are pushing a lot of premiums upward, but I think there was a resolution to that, and it's not going to affect us now. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah. So the state plan that we're all a part of was covering those weight loss drugs, or covering the drugs for the purposes of weight loss.
Right.
And because that was causing like a 300% increase in prescription drugs cost, they were going to impose a 6% increase on all premiums. But last week we received news from the benefits consultant that the state has decided to no longer cover those drugs. You're basically able to get the drugs for $30 copay for a month's supply of a drug that cost over $1,000. So it was just really driving up costs for everyone. But coupled with our good quarter of experience, our consultant feels pretty confident that we should land around this 10%. Last week I panicked because he thought it could be anywhere from 14 to 19%.
Yeah.
And that would have been pretty catastrophic. But we're pretty comfortable that hopefully we'll know a final number in mid-February. So hopefully in like 2 weeks.
You do, in addition to that, and I'm going to have a slide with how we want to, I know, Ms. Allen, you asked last time for kind of a dollar by dollar, month by month comparison of how these premiums would change for our employees who are on the 250-500 programs. I'm going to show that in just a minute. The other few things here, when we move pending your approval of the 3-year calendar next week to 178 instructional days, we just do have to account. You see that 39,801 additional contract days for our operational staff, since they're getting paid again on an hourly, daily basis. 3% raise is still what we're including here as the need. I also have a slide that's going to give you an update on where our competitors are in terms of what they're proposing right now as raises. But other than that, you've seen some of these, the driver scales, the head custodian scale, some of our bonuses, and then some of the other staff costs, which comes to a grand total after some savings with VRS as well as our position savings to about $757,000. All right. All right, goal 3, we're going to talk facilities, resources, technology, and these are a lot of nuts and bolts, risk management items that we have here, like our liability insurance and transportation costs, software for our flashers that we want to install, the LED, I believe that's what it is, right, Dr. Wagner? The flashers, LED flashers, we're trying to upgrade those. But these are really fairly typical. You're going to see these every year in our budget. Of course, the cost of a lot of these products has increased, and they do every year. I know Baycorp, I think we budget every year for 5% on top of the previous year, typically. For our capital needs that we will include in our operating budget, we do have a additional bus included here, some maintenance vehicle replacement, some sidewalk repairs at the secondary complex, which is hard to believe since I feel like we just did that parking lot. But we need to do some striping. I will tell you, after this weather, that's going to be probably potholes and striping, and everything else will be an issue countywide. Parking lot sealing, and the secondary fire panel has been something that I feel like we've been talking about now for a while. And then looking at the metal canopy for some of our maintenance equipment as well. That will come at a cost of about $300,000.
They lowered the school-wide painting by like $30,000.
We did, yes, ma'am. Good eye, Ms. Robinson. Yes.
Well, I just been in the schools and see where you paint.
And I'll point out that this math does not math. There are asterisks where there are things that were included in the budget last year that these items are replacing. And what we're trying to, demonstrate here are additional investment requests and needs. So those that aren't asterisks are additional ask, and the things listed at the bottom are kind of replacing capital projects that we completed last year, like improving the high school parking lot, and, a new serving line at Randolph Elementary, yeah, I think it was at Randolph, yeah. So these are just replacing those items, some of the ones at the bottom.
Sorry, you totally lost me there. Can you maybe say that a different way?
So when you look at these other, like goal 1, 2, and 3, we're listing the additional investments needed in this year's budget, on top of
Over and
what
above.
we budgeted last year. And so when I list out the capital needs, we had about $247,000 that we landed on. Remember, they shifted $500,000 from the capital improvement plan. We had to eat into that a little bit, to make some other things work. But we are trying to work within that same parameter of about $500,000 worth of capital projects within the operating budget. And so if you added all these up, we're kind of close to that number. But it's not it's not an additional $500,000 worth of projects. It's an additional $302,000 worth of projects. So,
All the baseline.
Maybe I'll ask my question differently.
okay,
We know last year we had the $500,000 shifted out of CIP into operating budget for
right,
these types of things. Would we expect another $500,000 for the upcoming year or no?
no. I mean,
That clarifies why you're approaching this.
yeah, I mean, it's not anything that we've been told to expect.
Fair enough. No, that helps me understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just trying to,
yeah,
I like when the math maps, and when it doesn't, I'll ask questions.
sure,
Well,
yeah.
sounds good.
Me too.
Okay, so let's just focus on the parking lot ceiling. It says 60,000. Is that coming out of the CIP now, or it already came out of the CIP?
So historically, we had projects like this that would have come out of the CIP. And 2 or 3 years ago, they kind of gave us a list of things to consider capital projects and things to absorb into our operating budget. So we absorbed $500,000 worth of projects the best we could last year. And so my assumption, Dr. Armstrong's assumption, is that now we have
That should
To-
continue to be.
No practice.
continue to allocate $500,000 of our budget to capital needs. So what we've done here is just listed out what could potentially make up that 500,000. Those were identified by our, Director of Facilities and Maintenance.
And you'll notice, just for the benefit of the other board members, the shift in philosophy, I think, was what are things that are ongoing, run the engine? You're gonna have to get the parking lot sealed. You're gonna
on a
have to,
regular interval.
right, versus, oh, we built a $54 million new school.
Right.
So it's like shifting the mindset from ongoing versus generational.
Right,
Um,
and large items like, complete system replacement.
Right.
Like the chiller, the
Yes,
boilers,
yeah.
a roof
Once
You're
every
gonna get
25
20
years.
years of,
Yeah.
so that's
That's capital.
right, that's
Yes.
capital.
Right.
But these, like, every couple of years, we're gonna have to paint the school, we're gonna have to reseal the parking lot. The metal equipment shed's not gonna last very long, and it's small potatoes relative. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about that? I did want, real quick, before I'm just gonna go back, to, I forgot to mention this, the 3% raise for all staff. I do want to mention that, we did our employee pulse survey in the last week, and we already have about 75 responses. I looked at it about an hour ago. And I'd say 30 of the 75 responses when I talked about what's something we could do better, is just, could we make our salary more competitive? That was something that came up quite a bit. What worries me, and I'll just be honest about this, is, if we don't receive any local transfer and we have to pare this budget down, at least in the near future, we're talking about a budget that may have a less than 3% raise. And we've got teachers, a lot of talented folks in this division who right now it's recruitment season. We had our job there last weekend. And I do worry about, what we could potentially lose just because it's time of all this. Again, I'm going to be optimistic, but I want to state that. Okay. All right. Some strategic abandonment. And this list really hasn't changed, I believe, since our last workshop. And you see there, we reduced a couple of the highlights. We reduced the Maggie Walker slots. We've got fewer textbook adoptions. That's a pretty significant savings there. You see those summer school stipends and some of the admin expenses around PR. And we're also, I will note too, that we're looking at a new platform in cooperation with the county for our board management software. So I think that's going to be, I think there's an email recently. I think we're going to be going down that road soon, which could represent a little bit of savings as well. So we'll keep you posted on that. So the summary is that without the local transfer, if you were to take where we stood for FY26, you add in the anticipated local and state funding, we would be coming up short by a shade less than $2 million. So that's the punchline of the whole thing. So let's dig in on a couple of those items that I promised. One thing that also came up, I want to mention this. Some of the potential General Assembly action. I did speak to Sands Anderson, who we work with, and just said, hey, you work with other divisions who have gone through collective bargaining. What would this cost us? And she talked through it and said you can pretty much bet on, I think it was a per employee number, which would come up to over 3 years between $2.5 and $4 million. That does not count. That's just teachers. That does not count the cost of negotiations. So that could be $100K or more, which is to be the work of our HR department or someone there, and that's really a lot of work. So that bill is still alive, and I believe is in committee now. So that's one. Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about what is a 3-year CBA teacher?
That is, collective bargaining agreement, 3-year collective bargaining agreement.
To negotiate a
teachers.
3-year agreement
Yes.
for a teacher. And is that an annualized cost?
That would be over the course of
the 3 years.
thing. Now, I think that's over the course of you talked to VASBO about this too. I want to make sure I'm saying this right.
I mean, the word I received is a lot of people are using a 20% figure,
So that may
any
be
on top of
annual,
any salary and benefits. So if you were to take 20% of our salary and benefit, budget, which is about $28 million, then, we could probably potentially be looking at the higher end of this annually.
Yes.
Okay,
No.
so 20% of $28 million is $5.6 million per year.
Now, of course, that includes a lot of non-teachers, so, that's just an estimate.
But I just want to make sure we're communicating for clarity, because I know our supervisors are keenly interested in this
And
as
they're doing
well.
the same thing on their side.
Right, so potentially a $5.6 million annual exposure for our school operating budget if collective bargaining becomes.
That could be worst case scenario, probably, yeah. I mean, I
Fair
would,
enough.
yeah.
I don't know, I'm just trying to get a ballpark estimate. That's,
And there's a lot of variables too that this attorney mentioned, and I'm not an expert on it because again, we've never experienced it here in Virginia, but I haven't had a chance to get back to her and just probe, but I will after we talk tonight, just get some more feedback.
thank you.
Sure. A couple other bills that are out there, that a few of these we've talked about as a group. Required high school career coach, requiring that every high school employ a career coach. I just said that would be the impact of 1 FTE for us if we want to do that. Now, could we look at, and there's a lot of details yet to be determined with this. Do we have a work-based learning coordinators that operate in the same way? Do we somehow meld some of those together? But bottom line is we have to have a dedicated career coach, and that is another position. So still a lot that has to be figured out there, but that's still out there. Annual mental health screening for all students grades 6 through 12. I really, and I'll be honest with you, and Dr. Wagner and Franklin Murray can correct me here, that would create quite the strain on our current mental health staff, possibly our school nurses. If you were to have to administer that, then the next question is, if you administer the mental health screening, then what do we do next with it when you get the results? How responsible are we at that point? And again, I put $20,000 to $50,000. I'm thinking this will be an added responsibility for a nurse, or we contract out with someone, maybe work with CSB. A lot of things that could go in a million different directions with that. Hard to put a price on it.
Why is it just 6 through 12? That was
You'll have
8 through
to ask the
12.
legislator that question.
Yeah.
That's the bill.
Oh, okay.
I'll link the bill there if you want to look at it. It's right there.
Yeah, I just thought it was for all students.
And then the other one that we've talked about for a while is the SB2, HB5, the Paid Family Medical Leave Insurance Program. The language in the bill is that premiums will be assessed to employers and employees. And I just put a TBD. It's hard for me to put a price tag to that, but it would have some impact in some form. Of rate that would be funded through payroll taxes, but I don't know all the details. Anything else you want to add to that, Stephanie, in your Basbo talks?
I don't think so. We should see, in the next couple of weeks, what bills make it and which ones die, so.
Yeah, and I think,
Be honest.
I think tomorrow is a big day. I feel like in the committees, there's a few. I know the assessment bill, for example, that is around SOL's 100-point scale of last 2 weeks of school. I think that's going through committee tomorrow. So I gotta get reacquainted with all this. Some things that we did not include, and you may be like, hey, where was this? We had it last week and now it's not here. If we wanted to characterize these as kind of your tier 3 needs, if money became available, then we could talk about this. The full-time substitute teachers, the part-time front office support, the additional elementary ITRT, the behavioral specialist, the web detection stipends. I think we're just going to table that for now. I don't see that going away completely, but I don't think we're going to need it for the next fiscal year. The administrative salary scales, we're taking a step back on that right now because, again, it's hard for me until we have some certainty around what we're going to be doing for our teachers and our drivers and our custodians to really go down that road too far. Not that our folks don't deserve every penny, but we've taken that off front burner right now. And then the middle school coaching stipend, which I know has been a pinball now for years, trying to get them from a flat rate to a percentage-based stipend. So those are the things that we're setting aside for the time being. Real quick, as I mentioned, you've already seen the slide where we rank right now in the teacher salary across the 5-year bands. This is in the state of Virginia, 131 school divisions. I think we're placed fairly competitively. When you look at Region 1 with those 14 divisions, I give you the rank here. No experience, 15 and 30 years, kind of the mid, and the max. And then where we fall from the median, and where we fall from the number 1 ranked division. You've already seen this data. I think the one that I really wanted to give you an update on is this, and you can see here some of the proposed salary increases for FY27 there in the right grayed out column. Henrico is talking about a 6% salary increase. Some of our other neighbors, Chesterfield 5%, Powhatan 4%, and the others are falling there in that 3% range. So suffice it to say, if we're not coming in at least 3%, I think we could struggle with retaining some good folks, and I do worry about that. So just want to give you an update.
Do you know where Louisa is coming back in?
I haven't heard. I've talked to Doug Shirley every day for the last 2 weeks, and I need to ask him. It's one thing I didn't ask him. But I can tell you all about their snow closing process. I'll find out. The health insurance premium increase, I've highlighted here the recommended sharing proposal that we talked about before, which was for us to absorb half of the increase of the premium of the half of the increase for the 250, our generous plan, and then for us to absorb 3/4 of that increase for our 500 plan and 100% of the high deductible. And I did put a note down here, y'all. I asked Stephanie to run these numbers. One thing that did, I think, for me at least, just seems unique in Goochland is that we still aren't aligned with our county counterparts when it comes to our health insurance premiums. They're not that far off. We talked about this last time. I did ask Stephanie, I said, what would it cost for us if we were to absorb the entire increase and line up with the county's premiums, which are a bit more competitive? That would cost us a little over 600, it would be about $630,000 to do that. But I just wanted to put that out there for you all. With that being said, you look at proposal 2, I've already shown you this where we rank, and I do think we are highly competitive in our premiums in our region and our competitors. Here's that breakdown that I promised, and I circled the breakdowns by the month for the 250 plan down at the bottom. That's what it would be if we absorbed 50% and the employee absorbed 50%. So they're currently, if I'm a family on the 250 plan, I'm paying $851 out of pocket right now. That would go up $122 a month if we were to absorb half that increase. It would go up about $84 if I'm doing this with myself and one other person, a spouse, and if I'm single, $45 a month. For our 500 plans, our middle of the road plans, I think the change would be negligible. You would see it go from $52 a month for single to $72 a month, $328 plus $37 for dual, and then $585 plus $55 for our family. So that would be the impact month to month. Of course, every one of those, every dollar, if you're participating in our benefits, if you're getting a 2% raise, then you subtract that from your raise, and now you got a 1% raise. But I do think we're competitive in our benefits. I still think even if we were looking at a generous county transfer, I would still say that I think it's wise for us to look at some cost sharing on these premiums. But in a perfect world, I would recommend that we align with our county and that we were able to cover it, but we just don't live in a perfect world. So that's what the difference would be month to month.
Is there a scenario, because is the primary difference between Key Advantage 250 and 500 just the copay and the deductible?
Yes.
That $250 deductible versus a $500 deductible?
The big difference is what happens if you're hospitalized.
Yeah.
Even that dollar amount,
And the other one is co-insurance? And it's more than okay.
but it also includes the difference in payment. The premium difference is small, about $5.
We did run that thirds right there. That's the middle column, Ms. Allen. You asked about that. The employee absorbed, let's say, 2/3 of that 250, and we absorbed 2/3 of the 500. And those are really the highlights, everybody. I do want to, again, make sure we're all lined up on our timeline moving forward. We will plan to present a balanced budget to the board next week as part of our regular business meeting. On the 17th, we'll hold our public hearing. And on that same night, the county administrator will present his budget to the Board of Supervisors. And then we will seek your approval on February 24th before we present to the supervisors on March 3rd. And we have a work session scheduled a little bit further into March as well. I know this process is going to evolve over several more months, but I did want to just be, again, optimistic but realistic about what we're facing right now. So I will open up to you all.
Very conservative.
Well, I think for me, when I think about how we describe the budget, I think this addresses our needs. I do. At least the needs-based part of this. Now, if we were in a position where, when I present to you all next week, if I haven't heard anything about the local transfer, then I think what I need to make sure we're all on the same page about is if I have to pare this down to like 2 things, because I now, if we go back a few slides here, and we have a shortfall of almost $2 million. So now if I take that out of the equation and I have to do only a few things, for me as superintendent, my priority is going to be ensuring that we share the cost of the health premium increase and also give our employees as much of a raise as we can. That's my first priority. If I have to take this and pare it down to something, and even that, I mean, we might not have enough to cover all that. So we'll still have to go through and scrub some things, but I want to make sure that, before we walk out here tonight, that if there's any conversation about that as we prepare our balanced budget, that's what I'll really focus on.
Can I ask about how the snow has affected this year?
The main effect, we can talk about the instructional effect, but the operational effect.
Yeah, the money effect.
We have been compiling all those numbers. I will say that fire and rescue's been great in the county. Robin Hillman, we've met on a daily basis with EOC and talked through this. We do submit all of our activity and all of our costs using a 214, which is used when we're in a state of emergency, with the idea that we may get reimbursed, or the county would get reimbursed for some of this. We've worked with fire rescue on that. What's the number we're at? We've had to contract with Crozier Construction to move ice and snow. We've had Lacey's out there. We've had to pay our team overtime and calamity time. This has been a very expensive endeavor.
I think that, some numbers I saw earlier this week, were in terms of contracting snow removal and overtime and hazard pay, we're probably close to 75,000 right now. Another kind of hidden cost that people don't really see is that our cafeteria loses the revenue for both federal, and reimbursement for meals not served, as well as any local revenue for meals that would normally be paid for, because we continue to pay the staff.
They wouldn't have to fill out food for them.
Well, there's potential spoilage, especially with milk that has expiration dates. So I haven't had an opportunity to really talk to our nutrition director in detail, but we'll probably have her, just kind of estimate the losses there. But her employees are on contract, so they're receiving pay, just like our bus drivers, when they're not working. And she's not bringing in any revenue into the enterprise fund that, is supposed to be self-sustaining. So
I'm just trying to get an idea of how exactly this is. What about the teachers?
Our
They're on
teachers,
salary, but
their
do they get
salary.
extra for
Well,
extra days?
our teachers, they're kept whole no matter what. They have also been working. We've had teachers doing MTSS meetings virtually. We've had professional development. So in terms of the impact on them financially, there will be none for them. So.
Right, but if you have to have 5 extra days in school, that's 5 extra days of pay for them.
Well, our contract encompasses that. So our teachers are on a 200-day contract, and that exceeds really the number of days we've got kids for professional development, pre-service week. So.
Okay. So if we were to have any, I know traditionally there's turn back money, but probably not this year.
it's kind of unknown at this point. I think the cafeteria factor is one, that we would have to subsidize the cafeteria, and we were already planning on having to do that anyway. And so, with that loss of revenue, of 7 days, that's going to be difficult to make up for her. So, we'll just have to keep an eye on everything. And as we get to the end of the third quarter, it's kind of when we start doing those projections.
If you do see Glenn Forbes, our director of facilities, Rosie Holman, director of transportation, Glenn's whole crew, Chris, Steve, Rob, Mike, JD, Rosie's whole office, they have been doing a tremendous amount of work in this last week. And they were out there last week trying to chip away at this stuff. And, it got to the point where, and it wasn't just us. I talked to other superintendents in other divisions who were having to, I think most everybody's had to contract out with land moving excavation companies to move this. It's just been unbelievable.
So, because we're a state of emergency, will the state not give us any money?
That's what we're working with fire and rescue. There is a process for submitting for reimbursement. I'm not sure what portion of that, how all those calculations are made, but we're working with Fire and Rescue to account for every single thing that we've spent and every hour we've had to work to do this.
For the food in the past, I remember I used to collect food on Fridays from the different schools, the milk, anything that was perishable, and then we would give it to the community. And then my understanding from two of the cafeteria gals that we could write that off. Is that in conjunction with anything that they would be able to do now?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
That would be huge.
Yeah, and that landscape has changed so much in the last 5 years when we went from, yeah, yeah. We'll get every penny we can.
Okay, but if we need more money, they have to give it to us for this year.
Well, I think, and talking to Dr. Rayleigh about this, I mean, he made that point, like, this is why you have a rainy day fund. This is why you have a cash reserve for times like these.
Yeah.
So I know that they'll work with us as we need to. I think we'll work through the reimbursement process for the state of emergency first and see where we are.
That's a good question on the information. Have you taken any money from student fees for certain courses or like the CTE courses, like if they're doing, different work or things, you could pay for those certifications or like the things that we buy a lot of
Culinary.
for the culinary. Are there any student fees? I know school systems that charge student fees for certain things.
And I'll let Bruce and Steve tag team this one, but we moved several years ago to limiting the fees that we assess to students. But I'll give some more
Yeah,
detail.
there may be a couple that are lingering out there, but I know actually it was under Dr. Rayleigh's leadership when he was superintendent, he over multiple years wanted to move away from that. So I think there are none, or if there are any, there may be one or two fine arts fees or something that we might not even be aware of. But there should be none or very few fees being collected.
All of which have to be approved by the board right now.
And I can't cite the code, but there is code that you can't charge instructional fees. So,
But I don't regularly still charge fees to the kids in the end of the year for certain things.
yeah, we don't do that.
So about sports events, we still pay for that, though, don't we? To go to a basketball game?
Our students do buy a ticket, yes, to go watch a game.
You know, if they're an athlete during
Yeah,
the season, they don't have to pay.
Remember working at football games and, they volleyball
So
players.
they play basketball and they go to a volleyball game.
I think they get in, yes. I'll get some more info, but I think we do that.
Well, that's an ask.
Like an incentive, right? Madam Chair? Yes, yeah.
That's expensive.
It is. But of course, Coach Fowler relies on that gate that he gets to fund our uniforms and everything, and it's a double-edged sword, definitely. Sorry. Smith.
So last year we were told flat budget. Do you have any insight?
And then my last conversation, again, is just that this is continuing to evolve, and I think we're going to continue to advocate for our needs, but the law requires that we move forward with a balanced budget. So I'm hopeful that we'll hear about a local transfer, what that transfer is going to be. I don't have any indication what that's going to be.
The intervention, that amount that's in there, that is our cost, not including what the state funds, right? That's already, the state is gonna fund part of that.
We get $103,000 we're anticipating in at-risk funding, which would fund that in its entirety. Those are two
Oh.
part-time positions.
Okay.
And that $103,000 is included in new state revenue. That's part of that $447,000 on the summary.
Okay.
So that's not additional
Right.
money. It's just part of that new state revenue.
will keep you all posted as we hear anything, and Stephanie and I will start working on a presentation next week.
I would recommend, for the benefit of the supervisors, that we put dollar amounts back on the things that on slides.
The ones that we were kind of putting off to the side.
Yeah, additional instruction
Yeah.
requests.
Yep. Got it.
Let's put the dollar back on there.
Yes. Yeah, because we're going to have to move a lot of things to this if we're going to give you all balanced budget. Yep. Okay. Appreciate the conversation. No worries.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say?
Staff, team, all right. They've been immersed in this just like we have, so they're probably tired talking about it.
And everyone's good here? In that case, in a couple of minutes, I'm gonna ask for a motion to move into closed session, but not quite yet. Before that, I would like to say that we are going to probably go into closed session. We will not be taking any votes before, during or after. So everyone here, please feel free to leave. At the end of closed session, you will certify us.
Yes.
Okay. But I do want to, just in case you don't have a copy of the budget right now, I'm sorry, the calendar. Next week, February 10th, we'll have a regular business meeting and budget presentation, closed session at 5:30, open session at 6 o'clock, and room 250 of the administration building. On this February 17th, we'll have the public hearing on the budget.
Back
at
here.
5:30 back here.
Yeah.
You will be presenting again, or just
I don't believe so. No, I think
next week?
I'll have it available, just the handouts that you won't have, but we're just there to hear the public, their feedback.
Okay, and that will be here, in the central offices, and on February the 24th, we will have, the budget subject to approval, 5:30 in room 250 of the administration building.
Sure.
All right. Any questions about the schedule? All right then. Oh, no, close chair. You can make a motion. Do you have a motion?
I move that the Buchanan County School Board convene a closed meeting under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act in order to discuss personnel matters involving the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, discipline, or resignation of employees of Buchanan County Public Schools under Virginia Code, I got it, I just, the glasses. Under section 2.2-37-11, parentheses A, and the parentheses 1, and the parentheses, and to receive a staff briefing for update on legal matters under Virginia Code section 2.2-37-11, parentheses A, and the parentheses 7, and the parentheses.
It is removed by Ms. Robinson that we convene a closed meeting under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act in order to discuss personnel matters involving the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, discipline, or resignation of employees of Buchanan County Public Schools under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1, and to receive a staff briefing or update on legal matters under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A7. Is there a second? Second. Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving into closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, we are now in closed session, and we will be moving upstairs.